The Rangers signed Alex Rodriguez? Wait, no, not that Alex Rodriguez. On today's show, I'm talking about the Rangers international signing class, plus an interview with Rangers signee Alan Trejo. All that and more on this episode of Locked On Rangers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked onto the Texas Rangers, the first and best daily Rangers podcast. I'm Bryce Patrick, a cripplingly addicted Texas Rangers fan covering this team for 11 seasons, including all 6 as the founder and host of this podcast. Thank y'all so much for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. If you're not already, you can follow me on Twitter at Bryce Patrick. You can follow the show at Locked On Rangers. Hit subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform and on YouTube, where the best way you can help grow the show is to comment nearly any single thing below. Now, before we get into today's episode talking about the Rangers international prospect signing class, my interview with Alan Trejo, and the Rangers' arb-free streak living on to now 25 years, this episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Now, let's get into this Rangers international signing class. Yesterday, the news broke early about the Rangers' new TV deal, unfortunately upstaging what is one of my favorite days of the year, January 15th. Now, you may be thinking, why is January 15th your favorite day of the year? That's such a random day to pick. January is such a cold and usually miserable month, but no. In the middle of this cold and miserable month, we get a day of pure joy. International Prospect Signing Day. Now, January 15th is the day that the international bonus pool money flips over to the calendar of 2025. So basically, Prospect New Year. Not regular New Year, not Chinese New Year, but Prospect New Year. Every year, well, since the last 3 years, however long it's been since they've changed it, to where these young kids who have been working their entire lives to potentially be major leaguers will start their professional careers. They will sign for life-changing money, and it's just a glorious day to celebrate, these kids that have worked so hard and, are starting the first phase of their journey. It's just a day of excitement. It's a day of celebration. It's a day of hope, all of those different things. And, unfortunately, the Rangers aren't getting Roki Sasaki, but they are getting a whole lot of young kids who may end up having very, very good big league careers, may end up never making Double-A, who knows? But on this day, we get to celebrate all of these signees. Now, the Rangers bonus pool money was at $6.261 million. They did not use any of that for Roki Sasaki. I'm not entirely sure how much of it they used, but they signed a bunch of different prospects, not a lot of whom we know much about at this point. I'm going to read them off and tell you what I know about these guys, but this is just a fun day to, talk about these kids and what they could be. The big name in this class is Roki Rodriguez out of the Dominican Republic. He signed a $1 million deal. He is the top guy in this Rangers class. I think I talked about him on, Tuesday's show? Yes, Tuesday's show, because Wednesday's show, I talked about television. Alorki is an outfielder, but he's also played a little bit of second base. He is a left-handed hitter. He is a bat-first prospect. He's played, all 3 positions in the outfield. He might end up sticking in center field. Maybe he ends up moving to left or right. If he can stick in center field, that is a huge, huge bonus for him. But he's a guy who's very, very polished with the bat, a very advanced approach. He's listed at a 5'10". So he's still got some room to grow right now. The power is just about average, but he's got a really, really good approach. He knows the strike zone well. He can hit the ball to all fields. You love to see that in a young prospect. Pretty advanced bat, so maybe he ends up moving to the system kind of quickly. But it's way too early to tell. The Rangers also said that about their top signee last year, Paulino Santana, who was the number 2 prospect in that international class, and he just stuck in the Dominican for his first pro season, which was fine. It's perfectly fine, perfectly normal thing to happen. I believe this is the next biggest signing. This was a $500,000 signing. John Simon, Jhon. Maybe it's Simone, a third baseman out of the Dominican Republic. He signed for $500,000. The rest of these, there's pretty much just names here in terms of what we know about these guys. The only other player that we know very much about at all is Hansel Ramirez, who is the son of Hanley Ramirez, a longtime big leaguer, 15-year big league career, nearly 300 home runs, nearly 300 stolen bases, spent time with the Miami Marlins, spent time with the Dodgers. I believe he also spent some time with the Boston Red Sox, won Rookie of the Year, and just had a really, really solid big league career. This is his son, Hansel. He is a shortstop out of the Dominican Republic / the United States. This is something that they have started doing when guys have spent part of their, upbringing in the United States. They will list them as, also the United States. But since he grew up the last few years he has spent in the Dominican Republic, I believe he is a dual citizen, if you will. But he's a guy who's got a really, really good stroke. Will probably end up sticking at shortstop, having a big leaguer for a father. It's not just a nepo baby. The athleticism to be a professional athlete of the highest caliber requires some specific genes of being very, very athletic, and having a dad who had such a long big league career, and having a dad who knows what it takes to be a big leaguer, the ins and outs of all of that. It's definitely a helpful thing. That's why you see the sons of so many big leaguers in the big leagues, because they get that little bit of an advantage. Now, the other names in this class, we have the catcher Carlos Torres out of Venezuela, Daniel Rodriguez, a shortstop, also out of Venezuela, Savel Zayas, outfielder of the Dominican Republic, shortstop from the Dominican Republic, Fabelin Volquez. God, we're just going to see exactly how painfully white I am with the pronunciation, or probably mispronunciation, of all of these names. Then we have, this is Fabelin Volquez, the shortstop out of the Dominican Republic, Justine Genao, Genao. My goodness, we're just going to butcher right through this. Shortstop from the Dominican Republic, Jalen Pinder, outfielder / infielder from the Bahamas. Not a whole lot of Bahamian baseball players, but good to see the Rangers sticking in the Bahamas. They actually have multiple different players from the Bahamas. Dave Neely, a shortstop, also out of the Bahamas. Raul Pereira, shortstop out of Venezuela. Averson Echenique, right-handed pitcher out of Venezuela. Oliver Guerrero, outfielder, Dominican Republic. Wesley Castillo, outfielder, Dominican Republic. Eniel Lopez, left-handed pitcher out of the Dominican. Santiago Almayo, I think, is Almayo. That's what we're going with for now, until I am told how to actually pronunciate it correctly. Shortstop out of Venezuela. Ruben Tiamo, outfielder, Venezuela. Frederick Dulce, right-handed pitcher out of the Dominican. Ronso Alecron, outfielder from Venezuela. Dave Neely, shortstop out of the Bahamas, like I just said. Jord, not Jordan, just Jord Diaz, third baseman out of Colombia. Emmanuel Figueiredo, right-handed pitcher out of the Dominican. Angel Gomez, or Angel Gomez, probably right-handed pitcher out of the Dominican. And Daniel Ramos, right-handed pitcher out of Venezuela. There we go. I did it so good. Pronounced all of those correctly. But congratulations to all of these youngsters starting their professional baseballing careers. I'm excited to see what all of these guys can end up doing in terms of guys who are in the top 50 prospects. Elorki is really that main one that you want to keep an eye on. He is a guy who the Rangers have liked for quite some time, and since they didn't sign Roki, they could end up agreeing to a deal with Elorki Rodriguez, a very, very fun name to say that hopefully we'll be saying quite a bit. As for these other names, I hope we learn more about them as they progress through this Ranger system. I hope I can learn to pronounce them correctly. Congratulations to Alex Rodriguez. He is out of the Dominican Republic / Cuba. He's not the other Alex Rodriguez. He's about 30 years younger than him. He is probably going to fall short of 117.6 career WAR. Probably going to fall shy of 3,100 hits and 696 home runs, and also probably fall shy of the steroid allegations. I'm hoping. Gosh, it's so easy to get lost down a baseball reference rabbit hole of Alex Rodriguez. I know the person he was and how annoying he can be on Sunday Night Baseball, but my goodness, was he an incredible baseball player. But I'm excited for the next Alex Rodriguez, hopefully the second big leaguer with the name Alex Rodriguez to play for the Texas Rangers and for all of these young prospects and the careers that they are going to have. Coming up, we've got my interview with Alan Trejo, a guy who the Rangers signed, a longtime big leaguer with the Colorado Rockies. I talk about what he chose, why he chose to go to Texas, what it's like to, talk with the big man in charge, the literally big man in charge, Chris Young, and, what he wants Rangers fans to know about him. Plus, we'll talk about the Rangers' arb-free streak living on. All that and more right after this. This show is brought to you by Gametime. I love going to live events, whether it's sports, whether it's music, theater, or comedy. One of my favorite moments last year, one of my favorite memories last year was going to a baseball game. And in 2025, I dare say one of my favorite memories will also probably be going to a baseball game. But, getting tickets to these baseball games or to a comedy show or to theater or even to a concert, it can be such a hassle. But not if you use Gametime. It is the best way I've ever found to get tickets for all kinds of live events. They make it so easy for you, and their new feature makes it even easier. Gametime picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to search through thousands of seats. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. That's code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? It's game time. Shout out to the Everydayers for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. I'll be back on tomorrow's show, hopefully with some more news about Roki Sasaki, maybe even some news about him signing with the Rangers. Before we get into that, I've got an interview with Alan Trejo, a longtime big leaguer, made his big league debut with the Colorado Rockies back in 2021. This year, signed a minor league deal with a major league invite to spring training with the Texas Rangers, a shortstop slash utility infielder, played a little bit of second base, played a little bit of third, a guy who has hit pretty much everywhere in the minors, but last year was a rough year for him in Colorado. He ended up getting cut loose and signed a minor league deal with the Oklahoma City Thunder, with the Dodgers in OKC, spending some time in their AAA affiliate there. He's a guy who's hit at basically level of the minor leagues, hasn't quite translated yet so far at the big league level, but he's a guy who I think is going to compete for a roster spot, who's got a lot of talent, who was I believe 16th round draft pick by the Rockies out of San Diego State University. Really appreciate him taking the time to jump on the show. I think you'll really enjoy this interview. So without further ado, here's my interview with Alan Trejo. I'm here with Alan Trejo, former Colorado Rocky, signed a deal with the Texas Rangers this offseason, a career infielder, and he is ready to get started in Texas. Alan, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, man. It's a little cold out here in California, but we're trying to get through it. You can see I'm in my cold gear, and by cold, it's 55, 60 degrees, so we're definitely spoiled out here in California.
Yeah, I'm recording this in early January in the middle of an absolutely terrifying cold front for a Texan in the 30s. I don't know what the heck to do with it, but it's the heart of the offseason, which means it is time to talk about baseball. Look forward to the spring when we're not all going to be frozen solid. But you signed a deal with Texas, and I'm curious, what made you choose the Texas Rangers coming off of a disappointing year at the big league level for the Texas Rangers in 2024 after a World Series? And I'm curious, what went into your decision to sign with these Texas Rangers?
Well, first and foremost, they have absolute trust in my ability to play baseball. And I think that shined a nice light because I was coming off of I wouldn't say a terrible year, but it was not very characteristic of who I am as a player. And the ability for me to play shortstop. When I signed with the Dodgers last year in the middle of the season, I was not playing shortstop in the minor leagues, and that is my natural position. So when I met with the Rangers, the biggest topic of conversation was, can he play shortstop? Will he be able to play shortstop? And yeah, man, I'm excited to be able to play shortstop. Wherever they put me, I'm obviously ready to play, but I do love that they have the trust that I can play shortstop.
Yeah, it's nice to get that confidence. And, one thing that the fan base has a lot of confidence in is Chris Young, the GM, the big tall man, 6'10". I mean, he's done a lot of things well, but I'm curious, what does a meeting with Chris Young look like? He's gotten a lot of praise for being someone who usually gets the guys that he wants in free agency. And so I'm curious, what's it like meeting with him? What does a kind of pitch from him, sound like, of him, pitching this organization to a free agent like yourself?
Well, in essence, the Rangers kind of pitched themselves. They just came off of a World Series win. I've been playing against the Rangers for, I would say, the last 7 professional years of my life. And they always have really good prospects. And organizationally, I feel like they have always done a good job with everyone. And obviously, Chris Young speaks for himself, but I had a good sense of where I wanted to go. And when I was pitched that, I couldn't refuse it.
Yeah, it's definitely an organization that has done well the last few offseasons. I mean, last offseason was a little quiet for him. This offseason, wheeling and dealing and making a bunch of moves. And I'm curious if the Rangers hitting coaching staff played into your decision at all. They've done a good job the last few years of getting the most out of guys, with guys like Donnie Ecker, their offensive coordinator, and with the addition of Justin Veal. Both those guys worked together in San Francisco on that 2021 Giants team that just felt like everybody had a career year.
Yeah.
Is that something you thought, might benefit your game of learning from what these guys have to say, of saying, okay, this is some things I could do to, improve my swing or improve my game overall?
Absolutely. Whenever you're presented an opportunity to be in front of those guys, it's definitely going to be something eye-opening for me. I have always hit in the minor leagues. I just haven't done it at the big league level. And I think that in itself is very difficult to hit the big league level. But with the right coaching staff, the right opportunity, it's definitely possible. And, you have some of the best hitters on the big league roster. So you have Corey Seager, you have Marcus Semien. They're incredible talents. And, being able to watch them and learn from them is going to be something that I look forward to as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you talked about your natural position of being a shortstop, and there's a little bit of a position block there in Corey Seager.
Yeah.
You've made a little bit of second base as well, Marcus Semien, those two guys. What are you looking for in an opportunity in this spring training, maybe to learn from guys like that? Is that something you kind of say, okay, well, maybe I'm not going to be the everyday starter, but there's a spot for me, in the big leagues, to try and earn a job on this 26-man roster on opening day? Or is that was that a deterrent for you, or kind of an encouragement? Okay, I know who these guys are. I want to go and learn from the best.
It definitely was not a deterrent. I've played with very, very talented shortstops in the past. I mean, Trevor Story, All-Star, Iglesias, All-Star, and now Tovar, who just won a Gold Glove. So I've played with very talented shortstops, and Corey Seager is going to be one of them as well. And I'm very excited. I'm going to learn a lot just from. For me, my questions are going to be about approach. I think that's the biggest difference in the big leagues, hitting wise, and obviously execution. But without an approach, you can only get away with so much. And I believe that Corey Seager is one of the top shortstops in the big leagues, and I just want to learn. I want to go in there and I want to win, whatever it may be for me. Whether I'm coming off the bench, whether I'm playing once a week, whether I'm the everyday guy. I don't know what that looks like, but I just want to go in and help the team win.
Yeah, that's a great mentality to have. It's tough to find that spot, to carve yourself out and find your role in the big leagues. But you're talking about approach. I mean, Corey Seager has got one of the best approaches in baseball. I love the way that he attacks the baseball. I'm not looking out there to get a walk. I'll take a walk if you're going to give it to me, but I'm looking to do some damage, and he has done some damage in some high leverage spots. But I'm curious, what aspects of your game have you been working on this off season?
My swing mostly. I come off of a really down year, and it was a lot of different factors that kind of went into that. So going into the offseason after playing with the Dodgers the second half, I learned a lot about how my body moves and how I can improve my swing. And it was really hard to buy into what they were telling me in the middle of the season, solely because you're trying to put up good stats as well. And in the process of doing that, it's really hard to make a big physical change. So as soon as the season ended, I got to swinging for I would say 8 weeks in a row. And I went out to Mexico and I played in the W12.
Mm-hmm.
And it worked, man. I felt so good. I hit a couple homers. I hit 4 or 5 doubles, and I felt really good at the plate. And really, it was just mostly my hand placement and being able to use my lower half. I for the longest, I was not using my lower half in my swing, and you can only get away with so much using your hands. And I don't know if you know a lot about hitting, but
yeah, a little bit. My hitting career, my abilities, it's more of a watching than a playing. My star ability in the 6th grade was not great. That was the last time I played organized baseball, and I was pitching, and I didn't do all that well. I think you've had a more storied pitching career than I have with your couple of appearances on the mound in the big leagues than me.
It's funny you mentioned that because I did pitch in Texas and I did record a strikeout, my first strikeout in the big leagues as a pitcher.
Who was it against?
Jonah Heim.
Jonah Heim. You got to give him some ribbing. You got to give him some ribbing in spring training. Like, hey, remember that, man?
Absolutely. I always brag about it. Like, yeah, I struck out an all-star.
You did. You struck out an all-star, a World Series champ, and I don't know if it puts as much on there, a Gold Glover strikeout, but hey.
We came up playing against each other when he was with the A's and a little bit with the Rangers. So,
nice.
We go back. So it was funny. Obviously, it sucked that he struck out against me, but I felt fantastic after. I was like, yeah, finally.
Absolutely. Yeah, you talked about playing with the Dodgers in mid-season. I'm curious. I mean, they're considered one of the smarter organizations, doing a really good job of getting the most out of players. They were World Series champions last year. I don't know if you get a ring being in Oklahoma City. Did you ask about that? Like, hey, can I get a ring, guys?
No, I didn't ask. But I think the biggest thing the Dodgers do is they trust you, and that goes a long ways. They let you do your thing. They give you all the information that you find necessary, and if you want to do something with that, then you kind of take off with it. But it's crazy what they're able to do with free agent signings, what they do with their prospects. It's a testament to their leadership, and I absolutely love my time with the Dodgers.
Yeah, it's a great town, and Oklahoma City is a pretty good baseball stadium to have out there. But I'm curious, now that you are in Texas, what is something you'd like Rangers fans to know about you, to get to know you just a little bit better?
Man, I love playing with swag. I like smiling. I like having fun. I think when you're not having fun, that's when you're not playing well. And the bottom line is that I like to play well, and I like to smile, and I like to have a lot of fun. I want to bring that to the team. Not that the team doesn't have that, but that's definitely what I enjoy most about playing, is being able to go out there, win, and have some fun.
Yeah, one of my favorite Rangers of all time, the master of fun, Adrian Beltre, a guy who, like, him and Elvis Andrus, I mean, watching those guys every day, it didn't matter if the Rangers were 20 games above 500 or 20 games below it. Those guys were going to have a good time on the baseball diamond. And this team, it's a little more serious. They could use a little more fun, a little bit more smile, a little more, big, wide, a little bit of swag, as you say, that SoCal swag that you bring. I'm curious, what is something that motivates you as a baseball player, as a person, or whatever it is?
My family, man. I'm a big family man, so I've always been that way, and everything I do is for my family and God. So I recently got really in touch with God, and I feel really good about where I'm at, and my family continues to motivate me, my wife, and just my drive to want to be better is probably the biggest thing for me. I motivate myself more than anyone.
That's great to hear, man. Well, hey, congratulations on signing with Texas. Hopefully, Bruce Bochy has a penchant for, win a World Series, miss the playoffs, win a World Series. If they do that pattern, maybe you will get your ring this year, be on 2 different World Series champions 2 years in a row. Alan, hey, thank you so much for joining me.
I appreciate you, Bryce, and thank you for having me as well.
Absolutely, man. Thanks so much to Alan Trejo for joining the show. I'm excited to see what he can do in spring training. He's been working real hard this offseason, and who knows, maybe he'll end up cracking the big league roster come opening day. If not, then we'll see. But I am excited to see what he can do with the Texas Rangers. Coming up, we're going to look at some moves that have happened, some official arbitration avoiding. The Rangers streak of lives on. Lee Stevens still is the last Rangers player to go to an arbitration hearing. We're going to talk about what that means for the Rangers roster construction and a few more things right after this word from our sponsors. Shout out to the Everydayers making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. We're back with 5 episodes this week on Thursday. We'll see what happens with Roki Sasaki. Might end up doing an emergency episode at some point if Roki Sasaki ends up signing, about what the Rangers will do after all of that. But the Rangers have been making moves. Last week while I was talking about prospects, some former prospects ended up signing deals. The Rangers avoiding arbitration. That streak lives on. Lee Stevens back in the year 2000 was the last time that the Rangers ever actually went to arbitration. And last week, they agreed to contracts with Jonah Heim and with Leody Taveras for the 2025 season. Heim is going to be making $4.575 million, according to Mark Feinsand of MLB.com. And then Leody Taveras will be making $4.75 million, according to John Heyman of the New York Post. That was a little more than I thought Taveras was going to earn, according to MLB Trade Rumors. Their projection had Leody at $4.3 million. Heim was projected for $4.8 million, so he was a little bit below what was projected by MLB Trade Rumors. But according to Spotrac, both of them were projected for somewhere in the $5 million range, which I thought would have been, quite a bit of money. But the Rangers streak lives on. I think the closest the Rangers got basically in this whole time since Lee Stevens back in the year 2000. It was Adolis Garcia going up against the deadline. He ended up signing a 2-year deal to avoid arbitration, coming off of that big old season, the big old postseason, signing that 2-year deal. So the Rangers don't have to do the whole arbitration song and dance with Adolis this year, which I'm grateful for. And I'm sure he's grateful that he got some of that guaranteed money for this season. But they'll have one more year with Adolis and arbitration next year. But this just kind of sets exactly where the Rangers payroll is. This kind of sets everything up to the Rangers know exactly what's happening with their payroll and what's going on with all of that. Everything seems to be pretty much squared away outside of maybe the Rangers signing closer. At this point, it seems like they're content to not and to wait out the market and see if a closer falls into their laps or ends up, signing a deal where they feel comfortable with and not having to go what they think is worthwhile to spend on a closer. I know they would love to have Kirby Yates back. I know I would love to have Kirby Yates back. They're still pushing up against that luxury tax deadline, whatever, the luxury tax line of $241 million. According to Fangraphs, they have around $6.3-ish million to spend. I think maybe it's closer to 7 now that we actually know what those arbitration numbers are going to be for Leody and for Jonah. And you may be looking at those numbers and saying, wow, that is a crazy amount to be spending on guys who stunk last year. And it's really not, especially for a catcher. $4.5-ish million for Jonah Heim makes him the 20th highest paid catcher in Major League Baseball. 20th highest. Not in the top 10, not even top 5. He is making $4.575 million, which is $20,000 more than Ryan Jeffers at the 21st highest paid catcher. And then you look below him, Austin Hedges is getting $4 million this year. Now, I know Jonah Heim didn't have a great offensive year last year, but he's at least worth $500,000 more than Austin Hedges. I mean, he's not a nothing with the bat. There's still very much offensive upside there. And heck, I mean, look what the Rangers are paying Kyle Higashioka, $5.75 million this year. Victor Caratini, backup catcher for Houston, is making $6 million this year. Catchers, they're expensive. They're really expensive, especially ones who have been all-stars, who have been Gold Glove winners, who have been World Series champions. Those are feathers you get to stick in your cap in arbitration. And even coming off of a bad year, Heim still has that value. He still has that feather in his cap saying, hey, yeah, I was an all-star not that long ago. I won a gold glove not that long ago. I have been very, very good in my career. Last year was more of an aberration that the Rangers are hoping and Jonah's hoping. And I know I'm hoping. I mean, if Jonah gets back to all-star versions of himself, splitting time with Kyle Higashioka, who the Rangers have said it's going to be a bit more of a, not quite platoon, but a sharing of the duties, a timeshare, if you will, but hopefully not a money pit of a timeshare like many timeshares can be. And for Leote, I mean, for a guy who's, probably not going to be your everyday starter, it's a little pricey, but center fielders who play that level of premium defense are also really darn expensive. And he's also, say Evan Carter has another back injury and misses another big chunk of the season, or Adolis misses some time this season, or just continues to fall off a cliff. Defensively, he has that floor of an everyday player. You'd like for Leote to hit closer to what he did in 2023, where he was around a league average offensive player while also being elite defensively. But still, that's not bad value by any means for what the Rangers are paying him. But that kind of sets up where the Rangers payroll is. That's kind of where the Rangers payroll probably will sit unless you get some news about Roki Sasaki or maybe some updates on Kirby Yates. But I don't know that we'll get those at least until tomorrow, hopefully. And if we do, then I'll be back with another episode talking about exactly what it means for this team. That's going to do it for today's show. Thank you all so much for listening. Thank you to Alan for joining the show. And until next time, don't forget to enjoy baseball.